Hey, HannahMouse1 here. Welcome to another devlog for A Farmer's Life, the farming game that I'm making in Scratch. In this video, I'll be adding a new building, the restaurant. Here you'll be able to stock the restaurant with large amounts of ingredients to complete recipes, and when you complete a collection of said recipes, you'll get some other benefit in the game. I want this to serve as like a late game version of Stardew Valley's community center, and in terms of the rewards, I'm thinking possibly reduce prices when buying certain items, increase prices when selling certain items, or possibly unlocking new workspaces to automate parts of the farming process. The first stage of creating this was creating a map icon, which I tried to make look like a somewhat fancy Italian restaurant. I went with an Italian look because even though the recipes available in the restaurant will be from a variety of different cultures, the NPC who runs it and who I'll be introducing to you in Two Shakes of a Monkey's Tail is from the Farmer's Life universe's version of Italy. And then I got the map icon to display once you've built the restaurant and created the name label for when you mouse over this icon, but in order for that to be relevant at all, you actually need to be able to build the restaurant, right? So I got everything behind that set up and working, which involved creating the UI for the build page with a version of the restaurant image and the monetary cost displayed on that, and then I sorted out all of the code behind it, which is pretty easy to do because it's all set up super modularly, and this is a process that I've done several times since I've initially coded the building system. And I needed to make a smidge more UI to display what items you need to build the buildings and how many of said items you actually need. So now let's move on to the NPC I mentioned earlier, Gitano, the head chef and owner of the restaurant. I created the art for him as he'll appear in the restaurant, and there are elements of his design that tie into my planned story for him, although I won't be discussing any key points of that until I move on to the story portion of the game, probably in the next major update. I mentioned earlier that he comes from this universe's version of Italy. Like I said when adding in the last two NPCs, Sasha and Santi, who come from this world's version of India, I don't want to directly mention any countries or anything because I don't want to open the door to the question of where in the world this game is actually set. I want it to be kept as an alternate world where it doesn't necessarily have to comply with logic when it comes to climate or what crops can grow or what fish swim in the river and so on, but I still want to have characters that reflect the lifestyle and culture of real-world locations like India, or in this case Italy. In terms of physical characteristics, I wanted him to look like he's really seen the world and been through some sort of physical trauma. He's old with wrinkles and silver facial hair, his face is scarred to the point where he's lost the use of one eye, and he's in a wheelchair. For his clothes, he's dressed as a chef, of course, with a lopsided floppy chef's hat and a white button-up chef's coat. And for the background that appears behind Gitano, I wanted this to look like a restaurant kitchen, but in looking up images of restaurant kitchens, they're a bit boring looking really. It's just a lot of grey, and typically there's a focus on function over looking pretty, which makes sense for the real world but isn't great for fun video game artwork. I did find one reference that had wooden countertops instead of metal ones and hanging lights from the ceiling, and I really liked how that looked, so I used it for my base. I added more detail with some saucepans hanging from a black metal rail and a wall mounted knife rack. For the wall I was going to do pale grey tiles, but I realised that they would blend too much with Gitano's white hat, so I went with a warmer creamy colour instead, and I think I prefer the coziness that this adds to the scene anyway. I then had to make all of the quotes that pop up when you're in the restaurant, of which I made 5. These all relate to the emotional, social and cultural importance of food, which I believe strikes a good balance between fitting with the story that I have planned for Gitano, again I won't be going into just yet, and being something that fits perfectly well into the setting, even if you don't know the story, be it because as of now I haven't added it, or down the line because you haven't unlocked it yet. They're all phrases that make sense for a restaurateur to say and help to build Gitano's character before you even really get to know him. I recolored the speech bubble assets to match the colours of the background and made it so that those appear in the right position on screen when the restaurant is open. I made the smaller version of Gitano to appear on the main title screen. I had to animate him idling, aka bobbing up and down like all of the others, and I had to create a reaction animation for when you click him. In this reaction, he looks to the front as though he's looking at you, the player, wheels himself back a bit, looking up slightly, and then resets himself. I don't know, I thought it was kind of cute and a bit different to the other NPCs, which is why I didn't just have him wave or something. I coded it so that he appears where I want and so that the reaction plays correctly, and I copied the art of him onto the thumbnail page as well, making sure to match his position in this image to his position on the title screen. The next thing I did was to add Gitano to the request board. I used the version of him from the title screen to create his request icon and altered the UI to display the correct name, and I coded it so that he favours items that you receive from the shipping depot that I added over the past couple of devlogs, or I've been referring to, at least in my own head, as exotic items, and I had to make sure that these can only be requested if the shipping depot has been built, which is likely as Gitano only starts making requests once the restaurant is built, and the restaurant is a lot more expensive than the depot, but you never know. Players can't be relied on to follow the exact progression that you laid out for them, right? You have to accommodate for that. Finally, I made background music for the restaurant in Soundtrap, and I wanted this to have a kind of Italian restaurant vibe, but honestly I couldn't even bring to mind what that would sound like. But after listening to some tracks on YouTube and playing around with things, I was able to come up with something that I think kind of fits the bill. I don't know, I'm not a musician, which you'll be very aware of if you've been following my channel for any length of time, but once done I added the track into the game so that it plays in the restaurant, and also added it to the music menu for the gramophone furniture item once the restaurant has been built. But that's all I've got done for this week, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, it lets me know to see more of. Join the Discord link down below, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!